pretty well established, and originally when they started coming up with policy, they based it on the Olympia Farmers Market policy book. And like, if you haven't been to the Olympia Farmers Market website and checked out their policy, you definitely should. It is an amazing resource. They have it really figured out. Olympia, Washington.
And that's all available online?
Yeah. Well, actually, another really great thing that they have. So we haven't done this at our market yet, but on their website, if you go and you're not a vendor, there is a page that says this is the basic policies. If you would qualify as a vendor, it doesn't even go into the minutia. It's like these things. They won't even give you the regular policy unless you get through all those, and you're like, oh, I still, after all that, would be able to be a vendor. Can I get the policy? And then you contact them, and they'll send you the whole policy book. The thing is that if it's not written down, it's not a rule, and you're gonna have to deal with it. So the more you write down, the better it is, and the less that the manager has for interpretation, the smoother. Write it down, put it in policy. So I don't have a whole lot of it. I didn't bring it up in how many people would want to see it, but our policy manual, and you guys can look through it. Right here. What happens at our market in the past is that the board had really tried to not have to make these hard decisions and give the manager a lot of discretion, which has led to the previous manager kind of the czar of the market, and he said it was because he had the leniency. A lot of the policy was that is decided by the manager. So, for instance, music in your stand was a big issue at our market. Some people wanted to play music, some people did not want to hear their music, some people wanted it quieter. So what they decided was it's a manager discretion. If the manager says you can have music, you can have music. If the manager says you can't have music, you can't have music. Well, for some reason, the only person that was allowed to have music was Patsy Cline. And if you were playing Patsy Cline, he was fine. But if it was anything else, you had to turn it off. So, that's just an example. It goes, there's so many different things. I think as the manager of a market like that, the thing that's been the most helpful is for me to be able to be it's right here. And if a board can write it down, that's the biggest and most helpful thing for a manager to actually have it written in policy. Anyway, that's kind of where I want to start the conversation. I don't know.
We had the exact same conversation earlier this year about music at booths. And in our case, we just wrote it down in the policy that if you're going to have music, it has to be on headphones, for instance. So if you're going to market your own CD, that's fine. Just offer it to people on headphones rather than. So we did kind of had just a market ban.
Yeah. It's tough when we have these spaces, 10 by 10 is how we work there.
Same for us.
And so you're not allowed to have your weights outside of your 10 by 10 space. You're not allowed to have your product outside of your 10 by 10 space. Well, then why are we allowing you to have your music impacting the next space, So if you go in here in our policy, it says under music, not allowed. You cannot have music in your space. Well, our market is run and the rules are made by our membership. So the next fall meeting, we had a lot of people that disagreed with that policy show up at the meeting, and those people who show up make the policy, right? So that rule has been changed. It hasn't been changed in our policy manual yet. I'm having one that's printed up right now, but what the vote was is that you can have music in your space, and it's a decibel level of 80. And they made me get an app on my phone. So I literally, if I get a complaint, everybody's allowed to have music in their stand. If I get a complaint from a neighbor saying it's too loud or it's bothering them, I go over with my phone and I put my decibel level in front of them, and they're like, hey, you got to turn that down. So ambient decibel level at the market is 80. So you talking right now, this is about 80 decibels. And so if it's higher than that in your stand, not allowed to. So that's the next thing I want to get to. Policy is, it's like ecology. It's always changing, So I think it's an empowering thing. It's actually the thing that makes our market work as well as it is, that people have such buy-in that they know the rules that are there because they put them there. And if it needs to change it, And not, okay. So we've been dealing with a lot of our articles of incorporation, bylaws, and policies. So there's these three things, right? So your policy manual is the thing that the board, we can just throw a policy in there, take a policy out. Like we don't, the membership voted that board in to make those decisions. The bylaws are these things that we need the membership to help change, but these are the things that really structure like how our market runs. For example, our bylaws talk about our not our dissolution, that's the articles. Bylaws are like how we deal with someone who broke a rule, and we have sanctions and those kind of things. It gets really deep about how what it means to be made by you. Like what can you sell and what can you not sell at the market, and how we're like tied to that. And policy is more like no dogs, no smoking. You got to have, there by the set it by the bell, break down by the bell, those kind of things. It's important. We didn't do this very well to make the distinction between the easy things to change and the hard things to change. Like the articles of incorporation for your organization should not ever be touched. You guys get that together. Those things are set in stone. This is like the meaning of our organization, and you need like 3/4 of your membership to be present and vote to ever change anything on that. And that's like, we only allow people from the interior to sell here. Like that's a big one. It's like if that's an important thing to your market, But then the policy would be something that like you don't need that. I mean the bylaws not. You don't need 3/4 of your membership. You need some of your membership needs to vote on it, not just the board. And the policy, the board can change. Anyway, I think those distinctions are really important. We've gotten into a lot of like trouble. Our articles of incorporation changed over the last few years so much that I had a lawyer 2 years ago tell us that like they're invalid. The state of Alaska requires you have these different articles in your articles of incorporation, and because you amended and didn't restate those things, you just have the amendments in there. You guys don't even have real articles of incorporation anymore. It's like, so we just actually got real articles of incorporation again, 30-something years in. But then those things are correlated with your policy, So it's important to have that strong foundation of set articles and your bylaws, and then the policy manual is this like really like this would be something I can hand to like a customer that's asking why we don't allow dogs in the market. That's what the policy manual is really for. And for new vendors that want to know like what are the fees like, what's hours of setup, or like this is like why is it only Alaska grown stuff here? Yeah. Those are important points I think to hit. Another thing about policy, as a manager, like you see things that vendors and the board aren't going to see, and coming up with policies like that helps you. Like for instance, there was nowhere written anywhere about people showing up how close to the opening. For instance, this is one of the things that you could come as long as you were in your standard there. By the time I rang the bell, it was fine. So I had people that, if we have hot food, people that fry stuff, and I had people, I'd ring the bell, there's people everywhere, and they're coming in with like big carts and trying to get their car close, and it's like, no, you have to be set, done by 15 minutes before the bell. I can't have you, if you're not in your stand already here, you can't start setting up 15 minutes before the bell. We won't let that happen. And that, that's not anywhere else. The board hadn't even seen this happening, So something I brought was like, okay, well, at 30 minutes before the bell, and I see someone's not even there, or they're just starting to set up, they give me the power to go like, look, you're not going to have enough time to get this put together. You can't set up today, or at least, give me the option that I have some rules to say you can't. Because before, if I did that, then you'd be like, where does it say that? You're just, I'm losing all this money. I have all this prep. I'm like, well, if you can't play well with the other kids in the sandbox, you can't play in the sandbox, Like that was, so, yeah, write it down.
Yeah, I like to think of it as the identifying culture of the market. So we recently had a retrospective board retreat. We had an artist facilitator who drew out our history like they do on those black and white boards on the internet things. It was fascinating. It was really cool. But what was very clear, because I wasn't around at the beginning of the Homer Farmers Market, is that they had the vision at the very beginning to set that structure. So your articles of incorporation are like, we are a farmer's market. We're not Safeway. We are identifying what we are. And then the next level is more like, this is our culture. This is who we are as a farmer's market. This is our culture. And then
you mean the bylaws?
The bylaws. And then your policy is kind of like the style of the time. You know, it's like, we're in the 80s, we're going to wear our collars up, we're going to have big hair. You know, that's style. So, you know, that can change through time. You know, so all of those are, but it's who you are. And so if you have that vision at the very beginning, it will follow you. So like the evolution of markets, it starts off like with volunteers and a few people, and but if you have that vision of what it'll look like when it's big, you can structure that in early, and then the transition is super smooth to get there. If you're trying to add things on later, it's a lot more difficult.
Yeah, and we were different from your market in terms of, we're younger, of course, so we're still kind of evolving. But from the very beginning, it was the board that set policy exclusively. It wasn't. We took advisory votes with membership meetings. We've done that many times, but it's always been our advisory board that actually sets the policy. So a little more stable in that, and a lot of times, at the end of almost every season these days, we have a handful of things to revise the policy book on. You know, music, something we just dealt with. That's where it states that at 9:30, you know, our market starts at 10. If you're not there, then the market manager has discretion on, you know, putting somebody else in that booth space, for instance. Although we still have people setting up, I myself sometimes have had to set up as the market bell's ringing, you know, so we're a little bit looser on that. And I know our structure is different than yours, for sure. But it's been a little bit easier for us. I think we've been a little bit more of a controlling market in terms of, you know, the decisions are made by a group of a dozen people generally, you know, and the membership weighs in by electing us or becoming one of us. You know, we have 3-year terms. At the beginning, you had to be a member for 2 full seasons before you even got to be on the board. So we really had a vision that we wanted to protect, and at the time we were organizing, you know, most of the feedback coming to us was, well, protect yourself as a farmer's market. You know, you don't want to go the way of markets that become, you know, craft venues, for instance, you know. And so we had this initial vision that we really laid out pretty strongly. I think Davis was where we got our bylaws, you know, or California, Davis, California market was where, and probably the bones of our policy manual as well.
Can I ask it? I don't know if this is too much of a tangent, but I'm curious to learn more about the membership, what it means to have a membership, and the relationship between the membership and the board. Because right now we're in Petersburg, we can barely get people to be on the board, and the board sets all of the policies. But I really like the idea of getting buy-in by having, you know, vendors and customers being able to have a voice in what's happening. I'm not sure if
So at our farmers market, to become a member of the Tanana Valley Farmers Market Association, it's $20, and you don't have to be a vendor. You don't have to be a farmer. You just want to support the farmers market. You want to be a vendor. To be a vendor, you have to be a member. But yeah, $20, and you have the application. You can fill it out, and there's a place it's like, I'm planning on vending, or I'm not planning on vending, or I'm planning on vending these months, blah, blah, blah. So we have actually, I think we had 270 members last year, but we only had 106 vendors.
Wow.
That's amazing.
What do we got, like 5?
We've got 5 starting members that are members.
Yeah, so I mean, but it's gone down because, okay, so I do a holiday bazaar in December for the farmers market, and mostly it's the crafters. We have a couple farmers that have storage vegetables that make it all the way to December, but to be used to be to participate in our bazaar in December, you had to be a member. So there's all these crafters that don't sell in the summertime that wanted to be in our bazaar that would pay that $20. And so I think my first year, 4 years ago, we had like over 300 members. And it's, now you don't have to be a member to be at our bazaar, because we're now at like the Carlson Center in Fairbanks, which is like a big venue, and I'm just trying to fill spaces really. And but it's a big thing. So, but those members at $20, you can't vote. You can't actually change policy unless you have been a regular attending vendor for the previous season more than 50% of the markets. So that's how you become a voting member. You're not on the board or anything, but you can come to the meetings. We have 2 annual meetings and raise your hand and be like, no, we want music in our stand, And so it's that differentiation between community members and shoppers and people who can help the board set the policy. You have to actually have sold the previous year. So that also means to be a voting member, you had to be there the previous season. So that's 2 years of participation even to vote, And then to be able to be a board member, you have to have been a voting member the previous year. So I guess that's 3 years, and then you just be proposed to be on the board.
We're just we revised to just 1 season, because we also had the same trouble filling our board.
Yeah.
Generally, if you showed up and your name's on the docket, you're on the board.
Yeah.
And it's still that way, honestly.
It's that way up there. We don't have elections for the board. It's like anybody who throws their name in the hat, they get on.
Do you feel like having membership helps drive people to wanting to be part of the board, like creating that infrastructure? Or is it just, I guess I'm confused on what the purpose of membership is besides just getting people's $20, which is also great.
The purpose of having the buy-in from the membership is that you have, because we're an association, it's their market. So you have that many owners of the market.
Okay.
And so when anything if you get a complaint from somebody and I'm like, are you a member of the association? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, vote, show up at the meetings. It's your market. I'm just managing this for you, So it's not it's not the board's the one that's like responsible. It brings ownership, I guess, more ownership for the community.
And is that, like you guys have your meetings once a month after market. Is there
For the
anyone else
board.
who's having meetings like that is physically impossible in East Alaska. No one will come. All things are organized in the winter and all things take place in the summer. Right? It's just like, and oftentimes those are totally different people. We're just super seasonal, and so there's some people who only work in Haines in the winter and then they're off fishing in the summer, or vice versa. And so, we also lack the ability to get human beings in one room to make decisions, and so that created huge problems when I took over the market. And so, anything that creates ideas of how to get people to, because it's not like they don't care about the market, they want it there, but to get them in a room to actually make decisions. So I'm not just a benevolent dictator is really hard.
Well put.
Even at our market where there has been so much personal involvement to create what's happened over the years. I look back at the boards of directors in the past that had the vision of building a building and picking that building up and moving it down the road and buying a property and putting it back down and parking lots and all this, and they did it. They rented machines and dug holes, and I have trouble getting anybody on the board right now to speak up. They're at the board meeting. All they want to do is listen to my manager's report and tell them what needs to happen at the
Autopilot.
This is an issue. I'm on a board for a community association, Esther Community Association, and the biggest issue is board education. Boards don't know what it means to be a board, and then there's this idea of oh man, if I sign up for this, I'm going to have so much of my time taken up. And actually, all you need is there's an hour a week every month, or 30 minutes a week once a month. There's not that. We just need people to step up. And so I don't have an answer for what's going to help people want to get into a room. I'm still having that problem. Our biggest issue is people that volunteer for the board in their 3-year terms, and you can have 2 terms, but after a year they're like, I'm out, I'm done. And then I have...
So they quit.
They quit. They don't stay their whole time. And then you have, empty seats, trying to get a quorum, but you had 3 people leave, or someone was on the board, but they decided they are done selling at the market, and then they're still on the board, but they're not selling at the market. I mean, just like, I don't know what the answer to that is other than have, all of our board members are vendors. That we don't have board members that are not vendors. That's actually one of our rules, is that all board members have to be vendors instead. But, you know, as I look at it now, I think because we do meet, like our board meetings happen on Wednesday after market. So we've been at market since early in the morning, selling all day, and then we sit down, all of us, our brains are jello, and we're like, so what happened this last month? How much money did we lose? Like, what is going on, you know? So I would say if you're like able to, at this point, you're organizing your board and getting it together, I think it's a good idea to have a community member space or one position who's not a vendor, to give you this idea of like, because we get lost in the, of like, this is our life, like we're at this market, we don't even know what does it look like from out here, you know? We don't have that perspective.
I think that's answering that original question, Leah. What is the benefit of having community members as a membership? Yeah, and like Homer Farmers Market just got our first community member, non-vendor board member. And it was in the bylaws that if you're a member, you can be on the board. And in the past, it was all vendors were members.
It's been quite a while since we've had it on.
Yeah. And so we did start a little pathetic attempt to reach out for community members, and we sold little cards at a movie night one night, I think is all we did as far as outreach, and so we had 5 supporting members. So, but it turns out that one of those people just has an open space in her life. She's highly professional, and she really loves the market. She's got tons of energy, and why would you turn that person away? You know, so when you're talking about the professionality of getting other people on, sometimes the jello brains aren't the best people in that position. But she also is a consumer at the market, so it gives her the perspective and gives her a voice. And also in defense of the farmers market and the whole idea of jello brains, that just makes it's amazing to me. We don't have
We
any
don't meet
meetings
during
in
market
summer.
season unless we have to. Unless Robbie, our manager, or before her, the other managers would say, okay, this decision needs to be made. We'll get together and do a quick board meeting on that. But generally, we don't do any of that business until the end of the season.
No.
When our last board meeting of the season is the setup, generally, in the spring. So we'll have our last board meeting a couple weeks before the first market starts. And then we'll only gather together unless we have to. Although now that we're on an email chain, we've made quite a few decisions online too, you know, quick votes and whatnot, to hone policy, I suppose.
That's a good thing to think about too when you're setting up your bylaws or whatever for your board, to be able to do that kind of thing online. It's written down that we meet on the second Wednesday of every month in person, that we don't make decisions online. I mean, it's just like,
Is that right? You have a new online?
yeah, we communicate. They communicate, but actually, they're not. It's written down that if 4 of them are together, the board are together at the farmers market, they're not allowed to talk about, because that's a quorum. Yeah. So they even at the farmers market, the 4 board members get together, and you're like, wait a minute, they're not supposed to be doing that right
What do
there.
you think about that?
Yeah.
That's another reason why it's good to have a diverse board. Like right now, on our board, I think I'm the only vendor. No, there's another one who's an occasional vendor. But like our vendors burn out hard, especially if they have to be on the board. Their input is so valuable, but we talk to them constantly at the market anyway. But we've been really trying to recruit from the community, because we have a lot of community support at the market. And it's like, if you really love the market, you need to help us make it keep happening, you know? So we've been really pushing that.
One thing that's worked for me, and I have a different situation totally because I'm under university umbrella, but I found people in other departments whose job it was to focus on health or community and pulled them into that. And I'm not looking at forming a board because there's already an AP board, like I don't need a specific farmers market one. So, but just as far as getting like additional, because it was me and the dining services person trying to get this market together, and both of us are busier than we can really manage, and so we started thinking about like, well, who else in the university is focused on this? Like, how would it make sense? So we pulled in a couple other people, and now we have sort of a group of people working on stuff, and that's been really helpful in the last couple of years. We've been able to distribute the workload of getting stuff together. So if there's a way, and like because people are so busy, if there's a way that this can fit into their jobs that they already do in the community, that might be helpful.
I'm in a similar situation as you were. We're not started farmers market because we had a big lot we needed to do something with. Which is really amazing. And now we realize what we've gotten ourselves into, right? We don't need a board either, but what we did that we thought was useful for input was we did a really big post-season survey. Like on the last farmers market day, we heavily surveyed everyone, and we had to do it orally because I'd say more than half of our vendors don't have English as a first language, so sort of like paper meeting formats that don't really work for us. But that's how we're making our decisions for this year. Like, we're honestly just like going through our survey results and saying like, okay, well people thought that the season ended like way too early. Like, okay, we'll fix that. So that's been useful for us, is just trying to do a big survey process instead of getting people to meetings. So that might work better. That's the culture. Yeah.
And one thing I do, like, I volunteer a lot with the Homer Farmers Market Board because I love them, because they're the most diverse board I work with in Homer. They, because there's so many vendors involved, it's self-interest. You know, they want to make sure that this goes because this is their job. And so you have conservative stick in the mud, you have progressive let's go out and hang the moon, you know, so, and they're trying to talk in the same room. So groupthink is not common, let's just put it that way. So, but it makes a really solid perspective when you're putting your policies together, because you know you're going to have all that diversity in the market anyway. So you might as well pay attention to all those voices so that you can get a policy that's going to make all those different. If you start heading off in one direction, like you have just only your friends on your board, you might end up creating a niche that is hard to back out.
Something we haven't, it's not written down, but we kind of strive for on our board is to have representatives from the different types of businesses that we let at the market. We let hot food vendors, we have crafters, we have farmers, we have horticulturalists, and we have artists. It's like, so there has always been a farmer on the board since the beginning, but it's not written down, and it might be something to write down that a farmer needs to represent. It's a hard thing to convince farmers to be on the board of directors because they're really working on something. It's definitely time, but man, I think to keep the market true to what it's a farmer's market. I am a firm believer that it's a symbiosis. The farmers need the crafters and the artists, and the artists and the crafters need the farmers. It's like without each other, it's not as vibrant of a business. But making sure that you keep it farmers somewhere is a good idea.
How many board members do you guys have?
9.
You have 9. How many do you have to have?
Legally, you have to have a president,
Yeah.
a treasurer,
The
And
officers, right?
you're all like registered 501c3s?
What's that?
You're all registered 501c3s? Because like
No. So we are, this is really interesting. When I got the job 4 years ago, I was told by our lawyer and the president that we were a nonprofit 501c3. So I was like, sweet, I'm going to apply for some grants. And I was like, they asked for my 501c3 documentation. I called the lawyer and like, can I get that from you? He's like, well, I thought you had it at the office. I was like, no, I don't. So I did some sleuthing. And we applied for Alaska State nonprofit status, and we were approved for Alaska State nonprofit status, but that's as far as it went.
So you just registered as a nonprofit corporation?
We're registered in the state of Alaska and are in good standing as a nonprofit state organization, and that's okay. But the federal government sees the farmers market as a for-profit corporation, and that does not conflict. I can be a nonprofit in the state of Alaska, and I am a for-profit federally. And so we pay taxes and we file like a business. And that was a big learning experience for the board and myself. This is like 3 years ago now. So
They don't want you to show federally that you're making money?
well,
I'm assuming you're not making money. Maybe you are making money.
we are making money is the thing.
Yeah, okay.
The issue is that we as a farmers market don't qualify as a 501c3 because there's no 501c3 or brotherhoods or for intended purpose. We are individual businesses coming together at a business to sell and make money. And if we had, for this, how we would get 501c3 funding or be allowed, we would have the friends of the farmers market. They would be, their intention is they're boosters, they're the supporters of the farmers market, and they can get 501c3. But us as a for-profit businesses getting together at a place, that doesn't qualify as 501c3. You could be a 501c5 or a 501c6, but that's not a tax exempt status, so you still have to pay taxes and you can't get donations, so it really defeats the purpose of going through all the trouble of having a nonprofit board and this whole thing to do that.
We had to reapply. We had that initial, at the beginning, we were denied. And you must have had a talented grant writer or an application writer because we really worked the geographically disadvantaged angle, and we are incorporated 501c3, and it took working those angles. You know, that we're geographically disadvantaged. These are economic opportunities, and also, you know, we have things like scholarship program, and we make an effort that there is a community support or element to us, you know. And
We're our own friends.
yeah, we're
Really, that's really interesting.
yeah, and honestly, that's all I can tell you. I don't know how our grant writer really, or not grant writer,
We had a
application writer. I know who she was. Or
Was that
did a
Sharon?
lot. Well, I think Judy Lund helped a lot.
So we had a CPA.
We had.
Oh, that's
Not all
amazing.
lawyers. That might have been a senior.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, this was a similar, when they filed for the 501c3, I guess their intention was that we were doing education, that was our service. We were a community service organization, right? Well, that, I guess, didn't fly. That was not proof enough. We couldn't prove that we were doing enough education that was, yeah, I don't know.
Could have been the timing of our application.
I also-
Same
yeah, it was
thing,
90s.
you know, it was
Or
in the
2000.
late 90s. Probably 2000 was our first year of being incorporated, because we got the state nonprofit status first, of course, and that was in '99, so it must have been 2000. We did have to reapply though.
Because they denied your original.
They denied it. They said, "Well, why? How are you a nonprofit? You're going to be making just all the things you just said."
Right.
And I know a number of angles were emphasized like that: outreach, community education. We have a children's program. We have a kids activities coordinator. You know, actually on a small payroll position. You know,
Yeah, I think it's a nonprofit. I mean, it's not a nonprofit. You can make profit. That's not the issue.
Sure.
You can make revenue. Most nonprofits do have revenue.
Right.
That's. It's just that you need to have a public benefit. You need to demonstrate that you're doing something.
yeah.
And education is often.
Education is a big one. The scholarship thing is big. At the time, it was right after the beetle kill thing had run through, and there was a lot of talk about geographically disadvantaged locales, and I know that was a big part of it. That it was offering economic opportunities where a lot had just recently been lost, and I think that had something to do with it as well. But it worked, and yeah.
What?
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask a question. So my contract for Friday Flames, I work for a board, okay? And that's all fine and well. My question is there, in your vast experience, are there any markets that are privately owned that are not governed by
There are.
a non-profit organization, etc.?
South Anchorage.
South Anchorage?
And Sears too, right? Sears.
Yes, Sears.
LLC. What is yours?
So we were nothing. People were apparently keeping like. When I asked, I was told that they were keeping their cash under a mattress, and that was said very proudly. So that was the market that I took over.
Did you get the mattress?
Mattress. So we were having a lot of issues because we were like nothing. And it's a little vague because we operate at our state fairgrounds, the Southeast Alaska State Fairgrounds. And so we were like, oh, you're part of the fair. And the fair was like, no, you're a renter of the fair. And they were a huge proponent of us standing on our own 2 feet. And so we can they'll umbrella grants for us, but more as a gesture, not because they actually want to take on the farmers market. And so I just went ahead and registered us in the hopes of getting SNAP benefits this year. And there were a bunch of other things because we weren't a 501c3. My partner and I, it was like my partner and I and like the other main farmer, and we're like the only 3 people who really have stake in the game right now. And so we signed the paperwork, but we would have had to take personal liability for the SNAP benefits. And so that was why we registered, but that was just a non-profit corporation by the state of Alaska, and we don't have a board and we didn't get 501c3 status. So that's where that question came from, because part of me wonders if that's okay, because me getting like however many people in a room is really hard. And so if I can just get like the people who do have vested interest and not have to worry about all these other people trying to make decisions for the market in a small town where no one wants to do that work, like maybe that is better. But then I have no idea what that means for the whole $1,000 we have in the bank account right now in terms of taxes this year. Like I don't really know. I guess I should ask that question at some point.
So I was really excited that Arthur Keyes was here because I've seen Arthur Keyes present about his farmers market, South Anchorage farmers market before. I was talking to him yesterday and he's like, I'm the head of the Division of Agriculture, I can't promote my own market. Damn it. So, just telling all of you, he's going to talk about his job today and then he's going to open to questions. There you go. But I know that he's an LLC, so he privately owns the South Anchorage. He chose where it went. He chose the managers. So it's a totally different scenario, and it's really intriguing. He runs it as a business.
And his is not a non-profit corporation; it's just an LLC.
Yep.
Which is totally different.
Yeah. So talk about boards and policies.
And we're organized as a nonprofit with a board of directors and everything because that was the intention. But yeah, we're a for-profit business, and that's how we've been able to buy their property and buy this building, and I mean, yeah, we pay taxes. I mean, I would encourage you, if you have the chance to be a 501c at the farmers market, you should, because there's a lot more grant money available for you, and it's really cool. I just actually applied for 501c3 status for a different organization. I'm on the board of directors, and there's a quick and easy form that you can, if you make less than a certain, I want to say it's like $100,000 a year, which is a lot of money. So you make less than that, there's an easy form, and it took us 2 hours online. It's just online, you fill it all out for, I'm trying to remember.
That's the 990, that's the tax report, annual tax reporting, like we do a 1040 as an individual.
It's a file.
Non-profits do 990s.
No, this is actually original application for 501c3 status, your original filing, and it takes 2 hours, and all you really need is a set articles of incorporation, which you can get cookie cutter ones.
Yes.
Well, yeah, we put that together we had to do that for the filing of the nonprofit corporation anyway, but how many people did you need to do that?
Well, you need to have a stated board, an established board, which is 3, they're officers, and then the 3 of you could sit down in front of that computer and do it.
Okay, I can get through.
Yeah. I will say that if anyone's thinking about the 501c3 status, the 4-acre group in Anchorage is the resource for nonprofits, and they will probably tell you not to incorporate as a nonprofit because it's a lot. There are costs you take on. You need directors and officers insurance. It's a huge thing you're signing up for. But they're the resource. So if you have any questions about that, just call them.
Who is it?
The 4-acre group. So they're a nonprofit that helps other nonprofits.
Yeah. The nonprofit.
They can answer all of the questions.
Yeah. They have a lot of webinars and educational opportunities you can tap into.
The number 743-2400. I do IT for that group.
Can I also say something so the Petersburg market has been also existing in a gray area, and we got grant funding and we brought in, which our local economic development council sponsored our grant because they have 501c4 status. And so the final thing that we did with our remaining grant money was bring in a representative from 4-acre who was appalled at what was happening. She's like, wait a minute. You're not part of the PDC? I'm like, no, we're nothing. We don't know what anything is. We don't know how to do anything. Help us. And so she was talking to us about fiscal sponsorship, finding somebody who has 501c3 status who will take us on. And we are in the process of doing that now.
So who's
because Southeast Alaska Watershed Coalition, which they would probably take you guys on too. And they will do all of the administrative stuff, all of the taxes, all the money goes through them. But we were like, wait, so like, what's the catch? And we're just like, well, we take 10% of your grant money, but also we have a grant writer on staff, and we'll find grants for you. And so we're like,
Yeah.
I want to do
I
that.
was like, this is like too good to be true. But because we have been going back and forth with like, we need to legitimize ourselves. Like this doesn't feel safe or okay for us to move forward as like a non-thing, a place that's making money, that's not paying taxes, that's, and we had some not so goodwill in the community when we first started, and I'm like, I don't want anyone to know that this is also part of what's happening. Like I want it to be legit, and they've just been great. They're trying to expand their mission to include any community.
Well, they're the ones
organizations
who got
that are
that
working on
whole
sustainability.
$500,000 food
They're doing
conference
a
and
few,
was
yeah.
at a conference last week.
Part of their mission.
Yeah, they totally want to be our friends.
Yeah,
And if you were to
it's
talk-
amazing. It's such a lifesaver.
If you were to talk to Foraker Group and get their horror story of the nonprofits in Alaska right now, that's why they would say, don't be a nonprofit. Nonprofits are going down. We're having hard times right now. There's too many nonprofits in this town or in the state. There's too many. All those 5 people that volunteer for boards, they're tapped.
Yeah.
Don't try and start a new
It's the
one.
same 5 people.
Right, it's the same 5 people for every board in your town. So stop it. But if you can, but then you have someone like the Southeast Watershed Council who needs that boost. Because of the tight times, and they've got the infrastructure, so take advantage of that.
Yeah,
as you
that
can.
was. I had no idea that was a thing that could even happen. And then learning about that, and then just a woman in our community who had worked a lot in Juneau. I mean, in Petersburg, like, we just don't know a lot, and we have tons of nonprofits in town, and they're all struggling. And I'm like, why don't we start an umbrella group? Which our PEDC is looking into doing that because it makes a lot of sense to do. But I'm like, everybody's trying to figure this out on their own. We're not talking to each other. Right. We all have particular situations where it's like, yeah, but I have this thing happening or that thing happening. But that idea of being like, yes, let's find like mutually beneficial relationships. That's also, and I think it will be easier to get board members because I can say, you don't have to figure out how to file the taxes. All you need to do is show up to a 2-hour meeting once a month and just listen and speak your mind. That's
So,
all, you know.
what if you didn't want to be under the Watershed Coalition anymore? Like, if you wanted, what if like eventually you found that group of people in Petersburg? Because like that actually makes a lot more sense in Haines. Like we're a town of 2,500 people, so if a bunch of nonprofits wanted to be like the Haines nonprofit, whatever, and then that would actually be more relevant than being part of a broader watershed coalition that also umbrellas nonprofits. So if you got to that point, like how would you not be part of them anymore?
It's pretty easy. You just give them, I think, 60 days notice. It's written to the
You
contract.
quit.
Yeah, and you say they don't exist anymore, and then it's all like written out about like because they hold onto our money for us.
Oh, okay. How do you deposit?
There's like a whole reimbursement thing. I'm figuring that out right now. But basically, they create an account for us. We put our money in there, and then we say like, hey, we spent this money, and they just pay us out.
But I would say if you,
No one has to know that. You don't have to tell people you're part of the Watershed Council.
Right.
You're your own farmer's market. You can just
Yeah.
call yourself that. Like,
Yeah.
You're really just using them for their base.
It's just a
I mean,
Yeah,
people
Right.
will know, and they might
status.
really, really care, even though they've never gone to the farmer's market before.
Yeah.
It's super fun.
For us, I'm like very excited about the opportunity to like tap into a regional network because Petersburg is just, it's like there's no reason for us to be this insular. You know, like our market is a community thing, and it will, you know, it's like that is written into our bylaws and all of that stuff. That is protected and safe. But if we can tap into the regional resources, because Juneau has money and organizations and people who know things, and like we don't have that as much. So if I have a way to develop this, like they can take me to conferences. Like there's money there, you know, that we're never going to see that on the local level, or at least not within our organization. It's just not. It's not going to happen for us.
Well, and for us, like, I had no interest in ever running a farmer's market. I just did it because no one else was doing it. And for my business, I really needed a viable income stream. I needed a place to sell my stuff, and no one was making that a real place. And so, in terms of the transferability of the market leadership, that sounds a lot easier where like there is this umbrella organization versus just like the Leah Nick show, more and more tired, you know?
and that's also where that pre-vision of your policies are really important. So
Totally.
if anybody's worried about being manipulated by the umbrella organization, you can say, oh, this is what we do. One aspect of the Homer Farmers Market policies that were an original vision that I so admired from the beginning and made sure that we honored the crafters but didn't become a crafts market was that 70-30 layout. You could not have more than 30% craft vendors, full season vendors. So
Well, actually, it was 30%, 70% reserved for growers and producers. So we've never hit that benchmark, though. I mean, if we were to have that many vendors to come forward that were selling locally grown agricultural products, they'd get those spots first. And we
So
would
they
reserve
prioritize.
30% for crafts. And so in practice, what that means is that we'll only offer 30% of those market spaces to full season crafters. And the rest will be space available to crafters. And if you go into our market, you'll see that at least half, if not more, of our vendors are crafts or other services or other things. And we've never hit that benchmark. But at the beginning, that was most of our advice was coming to us to protect yourself as a farmer's market. And so that we wrote that into policy. That was one of our first policy things, was to reserve 70% of the space for growers.
and as it's evolved,
Producers.
yeah, and
If
as
you
it's
count
evolved
fishy people.
in the summer, like at the beginning, it's a lot more crafters are filling those space available. So now that we got the high tunnels, a lot more people are coming in,
Exactly, yeah.
and we've got space for them.
So it's starting to get there. Yeah, we could actually hit that one day.
Something I found, percentages are a hard one for me. Saying, we need, it has to be whatever, only 10% of the total vendors can be hot food vendors or whatever. We had all these
Right.
things. It was like, well, that we are a first come, first served market. So I don't know from day to day, week to week. You're a member, I don't know who's showing up until that morning when you show up an hour before, 2 hours before the bell. You don't have to come, you're not committed to come, you could not come, I don't know, just show up. And
See, they don't even apply.
It's true.
what's that?
They don't apply at all beforehand. They just
They
literally
have to be
show
a member to set up, but I can take their application and $20 in the morning. And
Wow.
the
Is
thing
that
that's kind of slowed
stressful?
people.
Stressful.
Yeah, you should see my first 2 hours. My first 2 hours in the morning or something. I have now learned who is gonna be and not gonna be
So
after.
you said you changed that?
What's that? No, that is we are first come first served to this day right now.
That's in your policy.
That's in our policy. And this gives the freedom to farmers that they said that they'd come, but their kid broke their leg and they're not showing up. And so yeah, it's a first come first serve. And at an hour before the bell, if you're not there and you have your spot you always set up, I can give your spot that you always set up to somebody else an hour before the bell if I don't see you. Unless you call
set
me.
up the spots for people, or do they have their own full?
They're required to break down everything after market every day, take it
So
home.
it's like a white tent affair?
White-
Well, you have a
Well,
permanent.
Well, so we have a building, a very large building that can fit about 40 vendors inside, and then I have space for 60 vendors outside on a parking lot. Well, not parking lot, it's a blacktop specifically for vendors, and then we have a parking lot. But
Do you fill that every?
on Saturdays, in the midst of the summer, I'll have 105, 103 vendors on Saturday.
So it's that comes up that people are turned away.
I have never,
frequently.
because this is my paradigm, I have never turned a person away, but I make up spaces. I'll put someone in the grass. You came here with something to sell, I'm not sending you home.
And we're the same, and we're in Kodiak, and it's we squeeze in.
Yeah.
We don't have a huge space, but it's we've had 40 vendors a few times. And it's we started with 7, probably 6 or 7 vendors about 5 years ago. And we're first come, first serve, as long as you follow, you have to make it yourself, it has to be locally grown, that kind of stuff. It's we just squeeze in, people sit in the back of their truck tailgate and sell stuff.
And we have a little
If
bit,
that's what happens.
yeah, we have set spaces and, yeah, there's a lot of rules.
And our rule is play nice,
Yeah,
period.
that's a good rule.
Well, so far it really hasn't been an issue.
That's
So
awesome.
far we really haven't had to spank anybody or I haven't had to take anybody in the corner and say.
No timeouts.
This is the thing that, as markets, I'm dealing with, we had, I mean, we had like harassment issues last year between vendors. We had police called last year between vendors. We had like. You put people together for 20 years in the same space, and you put one new person right next to them, and it's not. I mean, it can get.
Sorry, no, I'm just curious, like, so people just like, so that's how our market used to be, and they would set up their own tables too, but we're just like under a big permanent pavilion, so you don't even really get a 10 by 10, you get like an 8-foot table. So like, we took that on to like set up the tables ourselves because that made me feel crazy, but you have these people who've been coming year after year, so don't they want their same space? Like, I want my same space.
In the policy manual, it says that it's my responsibility to put as much effort as I can to get people into their sacred spaces.
Yeah.
So I do, and I know where people have been who've been there for 34
That's
years.
just a function of your competence.
This is my job, and
Yeah.
I go in the spring. I spray paint like this is your 10 by 10 square. Boom, boom, boom. It's don't, and I'm serious. I like your blocks outside that square, move it back in. I'm like that. That's how like it's got to be like this. Sorry guys. And people are like, why is he always on me for this? I have 105 of you. That's why.
That's the worst activity at our market is people complain about our spacing, and yeah, if they get out, they're like, why do they bother us about this? But yeah,
There's really
gotta
important,
be
few
done.
important things I think that help my market run really smoothly is like this is your space and timing and like the bell. There's like big around like nobody sells anything at that market before I ring that bell. And if I see you selling before that market, I warn you that you're going to lose your market vendability next market. I'm not going to invite you back if I see this again. And if I see it again, I do. I'm like, that was it. You got a verbal warning last time. I wrote it down this time. You guys don't come back next time.
And they know that. I tried to buy something like, oh no, where's Brad?
Yeah. And that's just respect for other people because like I'm a farmer, I'm a vendor at that market. My wife is setting up our veggies and I'm telling people to not sell. But if someone goes to somebody else and was like, let me buy that, those carrots from you now. This guy's not set up. It's like someone else is going to come hassle her for like, give me those carrots that you're pulling out of that crate right now. I'm like, I can't sell them to you. Well, I just got some over here. It's like.
Right, it's not fair to the people who market starts at 11. People who maybe aren't quite ready don't get the opportunity to compete.
You're gonna have market starts at 11. People there at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, being like walking around. Like, when are you guys open? Can I buy that right now? I'm like, no, we open. This is this grocery store. The store would be locked.
Oh no.
And then I do a closing bell. We allow people to sell after that. It's just to let people know that we are allowing people to break down. And that's the other thing that I'm really sticking on is no one begins breaking their setup down before they hear that bell. If I see you putting stuff in a box before that, I'm not happy. And it's because that's another respect thing. It's like, we're open. This is giving people perception that we're closing. I want people to be spending money at 4 o'clock, spending money. You're closing your stuff down. Everybody's like, "Oh, you guys closing?"
and then it's a food chain, and then others start following.
Especially if it's.
So so I think those are really
Those are good essential rules.
essential rules, and that on me is like I think that's really contributed to the smoothness that they know these things. Like I'm not. It's the same for everybody. That's a big change from the previous manager. This manager is like he liked Patsy Cline and his few like and they did whatever they wanted, and the ones you didn't like, So it's good to have those few things.
Do you let vendors shop from other vendors before you?
Yes.
That's our one exception.
That is we have that exception too, which gets a little confusing when there's 105 vendors because nobody knows everybody is a vendor, and so you go up and you're supposed to say, "I'm a vendor." Can I buy?
But legally, I have to say that.
You're supposed to say that so that people aren't asking everybody that comes, "Are you a vendor? Are you a vendor?"
End up explaining to the people in the front of the line, I can sell to this person now
Exactly.
because they're a vendor. And most of the people who are in the front of the line are people who are usually in the front of the line because they're your regulars and they're all trained up. They go on.
It's not a problem, though.
But it is awkward. It is awkward, but I don't know really a good way around.
Side for him, and I'll come back later for it.
Yeah.
So you're like old ladies being like, wait, but why is he shopping?
Right.
So that happens still?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Less and less
Old ladies always do that.
we started that rule because we would sell out before the market even began. We had a problem with
Wow.
having enough product to be
What?
there. And so,
Well, in Kodiak,
well,
we
that
have
rule
huge
that
farm
was
markets.
instituted really quickly because it was
We
like,
have like no farmers.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah, that's
go
my
out
question,
and
because at our market, like, a lot of people are sold out after like the first hour, hour and
Sure.
a half. And I think we're gonna shorten our time to try, because that is a problem, and people will just kind of pack up and go, and then their stuff doesn't get really cleaned up. It sucks for the rest of the people who stay the full time. Like, I want
Yeah.
that to be a change that we're moving toward, but at the same time, if you're sitting there and you have nothing to sell,
Right.
like, what do you do?
So
You
our
know?
policy
we're
is,
shortening.
you are required, if you come to, first come, first serve, but if you come to farmer's market, you have to be there before the opening bell, and you have to be there until the closing bell. You're not allowed to leave unless you sell out. And if you sell out, you're allowed to leave at that moment. You need to tell me that you sold out.
Yeah, our market was empty.
And,
Okay.
and so you sell out, and you have to follow all the rules of cleanup and the whole
Right, you
thing.
still
And
have to do
if
the-
you have stuff that you need to have your car hauled, you have to leave it there. You're not allowed to do that, and you have to come back at 4. But you can leave. You can leave your stuff. Put a sign out there, sold out, gone fishing, be back Saturday. But we have one guy. He's sold out by 11 o'clock every day. He's gone. He's gone. That's just how it works. He needs to make more, bring more. But
And that's the feedback loop, is that, because for a farmer's market, you don't want to have empty booths.
Right.
You know, so, but as a farmer that's selling, when everybody else has got stock and you just sold out, you don't look like you've got your act together either. So, a feedback loop does start kicking
Yeah.
in. Keep hoping.
Yeah, it's like
But
you're
yeah,
gonna
short
make
and
more
hard.
money if you have more things, right?
Yeah. Well, now that the cottage food industry law has opened up, you know, people can have other things besides produce. So there are some of our vendors who have like, Shimelics have tons of pies and zucchinis and tomatoes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so they can keep pulling stuff out of the truck that they baked the night before if they run out of their zucchinis.
Can I take a quick poll? So Saturday markets, just getting an idea, what are hours for your market?
9 to 4.
You guys?
We
9 to
are
4.
10 to 1, we used to be 10 to noon. But for us, our vendor, like some of our better vendors, said it wasn't worth their time to just come for 2 hours. But people do still sell out.
Okay.
And so we're still trying, that was a big thing. So we're still trying to fill that last hour. And part of it was we were trying to actually be more compliant for like WIC and things like that. Because technically you're supposed to be 4 hours.
3 now.
3 now.
Is that
So
right?
we are
Oh,
compliant now.
forgot.
But, so I don't know if 3 hours is good or not.
We're
but
we're
that's
10
what
to
we
3 for homers, 10 to 3. And that lengthened from the originally we were 10 to 2. And I don't know, 10 years ago we lengthened it because there was finally enough to sell.
Yeah.
But it took a while. There's no easy answers to that because you can't just grow more carrots because you want to grow more carrots. You know?
Yeah.
And we still suffer from the reputation of tons of people will still say, well, I didn't make it at 10, so I didn't bother going.
Yeah. So
That's
that's
a hard
that's-
reputation
And
to
how many
break.
vendors do you guys have?
What's that?
How many vendors do you guys have?
I think we have 40,
We have 40
40
booth
plus
space.
spaces.
Kind of 11 months, whatever.
And about half of those, what would you say, are full season vendors?
And do you guys have people commit to the season?
Yeah.
We do. We have a full season and we have a space available membership. So, I mean, it's same membership, but status, I would say. And it used to be a substantial break, but these days it's only like $15 that you save by getting a full season membership. But it's people,
Yeah.
you know, they're only taken by people who are
Want their booth.
dedicated. And they want that booth for the full season.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how it works in Olympia. They have you.
How many people are in your
have
market?
set full season members, and then
Or
they'll
how many
have, like,
vendors do you have?
day space available
Oh, yeah.
vendors, you know. But as a vendor who's permanent,
Okay.
you have to be
We
there
only have
4 days a
one
week,
commercial group,
every week.
and they are like
Represented
probably
by your
about a third of our
owner. 3 days
space.
a week, you know, like.
And where are you
We
located?
don't require our Wednesday markets
Okay.
to be, but it's for Saturday status.
Yeah.
Generally, if there's space available and you buy a Saturday spot, you get a Wednesday spot with it. As a way for us to try to beef up our Wednesday markets.
So it's like we have
I'm
The only
also
thing
really
that-
curious how much people charge. Like, what does it cost to be a vendor
And
in
they
your
have
market?
a benevolent.
We charge $10 a day for your
Although I'm
space
sure
that you set up and 10% of your total sales. So it's a heavy, it's like one of the
So
higher,
there's no cap on it.
no, like we have a guy, the carrot guy of Fairbanks, his name's Pete Mayo, Spinach Creek Farm, they're very famous carrots. He grows like 4 miles of carrots every year. He will sell upwards of like thousands and thousands of dollars in one day, and by like noon, and he'll be sold out of carrots by like 10 a.m. and he'll do like 5G or something, and so he'll pay us $500. Like that.
That's the carrot man.
From
Jeez.
one stand, he's just like boom, and so and actually like the assessments for the whole season, it's thousands of dollars that he pays at the market. What's that? Everything in our market has been and continues to be an honor system, and it's worked for 37 years.
And again, that's a culture thing. So in the Homer Farmers Market, you say percentage of sales, and they say, you want to know my sales? Totally different attitude. So if that is incorporated at the beginning, then you've got that. Another thing, I was talking to Kathy about this yesterday from Minnesota. Their farmers market, okay, am I going to get this right? 2/3 of their income is sponsorships. 1/3 is membership fees.
Wow.
So when her farmers don't want to report their income, she's like, you want to pay the fees to come up with those sponsorships? And you're like, so, totally, if you can formulate those things into your policies early and take advantage of what you'll be able to do with that in the future. And that knowing people's income is actually, even if it's just a guesstimation honor system,
Really nice to know.
it's so nice for grants and things like that.
Yeah, I know exactly what was sold on the blacktop and in the building last year. You know, because I got 10% of that. That was our income. So we did 1.3 million. Well, the vendor 1.3 million on the blacktop.
That's a great number to have.
That's kind of successful.
Nonprofit.
We do $20 a week, I think. Is that what
It's
we're
flat.
at? 25 now? Okay, I'm not quite up to it.
So ours is
25, but that counts the Wednesday market.
Okay.
Do you do it on space?
And you can do a Wednesday market for 10 bucks.
Just that
So ours,
each market
so when I took over, it was $5,
So you're
which
going around
that's our
collecting, or they
fair
come
to
to
the
you,
kind to us,
and-
and they only
So I
charge
have
vendors show up. So it's
envelopes.
$5 when I go to the
And
fair, whoever comes
it's
up,
got
we
a
just
sheet
pay
inside,
$5
and
to
it's got
them.
a
Which is like
black
always
and
less
white
than a
yellow
third
red
of what
copy.
it
They
would
fill it
cost
out, they get their
for normal
transfer, they
rental
can
for
go
that
to their
space.
records,
So
they put that
$5
slip,
when I
check
took over, it was
it.
10% of sales
Or
flat.
they
It
can
was
do cash too,
robbing
in the
our
envelope,
few
and
really
they
good
bring it to my
vendors who
office.
didn't want to come anymore because they were actually
Immediately
losing
after
money and they're
the
spending
Okay.
so much. So we capped it at
All
$20
the money
because to
with the
me,
treasurer,
a space like that,
and
like
every day.
you get an 8-foot table for
Yeah.
$20.
Yeah.
Like that's,
I'm
I
like
feel like that was
counting-
fair in terms of all the markets that I've done, and you know, it's covered space, electricity,
Yeah.
everything's for
To go apart.
Oh, you guys have electric.
you
That's
do
cool.
electric, like they don't
Every
bring their own
day.
tent,
I do.
don't set up their
I'm
own
going out
table,
and
like they get a
Actually
lot
come
for
in.
that, and it's still proportionate to what they're actually making. And so people who aren't doing well, we're not robbing them. And then people didn't like that still, and so we came up with the community table, which we provide 2 of the 8-foot tables together. We provide the tablecloths. And you get like half, it's a shared space, you get like half of that space, and that's just a flat 10%. So the whole thought process is you come, you try it out, you pay that 10%. If you're making real money, you want to become a real vendor. And then the hope now is to extend that into like creating, we have a lot of facility in our town considering the number of people, so we have a lot of commercial kitchens, most of which are empty all through the winter. And so there's actually a lot of I know, it's so hard. There's like all these commercial kitchens that no one's using. But yes, we have all this facility, and like even like the ones that you would pay to rent or whatever, like it's really cheap. And so people who wanted to do cottage food, like there's a lot of opportunities. So the hope is that as we build ag, as we build cottage food, people will do community table, vendor booth, and then actually we have a lot of tourism and gift shops and things. So they're then selling their jam that was made at a commercial kitchen at the shops in town. So we're trying to create that avenue for it to be a real income for people. So it's worked out really well. That has gone really well. That flat like cap at $20, and then we know who's making real money and who isn't. And I'm sure they'd be happy to offer them a break if we actually used it for grants. And
So
stuff.
we have about 5 more minutes.
Oh,
So are there any burning questions that, like, there's some folks we haven't heard from? Is there anybody who would like to speak up or has any comments or questions?
As someone who is venturing into providing an opportunity for farmers and artisans, what advice, and it would not be board governed, what advice do you run screaming?
can you do that again? Can you say
What advice do you have? So let me give you a little bit of perspective. I met this fabulous lady and this fabulous lady and a bunch of other fabulous ladies last summer in Palmer, agricultural thing, and it's always been a passion of mine. And I love events and I love markets and I love this. And after that, I said to myself, I'd really love to provide another opportunity in Palmer for our local farmers, other than the Friday Fling or our Colony Farmers Market. And so I'm working on that right now because I hate the fact that they're leaving the valley and going to Anchorage. And I love you Anchorage people, don't be offended. But it's just a lot of work for them. It's a lot of time, a lot of travel, and we need more of that in the valley. We have a lot of farms. And so I want to venture.
We don't have any Anchorage farmers.
Huh?
We don't have any Anchorage farmers.
Yeah. So I want to venture out as a business owner to provide an opportunity. And I love my boards. I love all of you guys that are nonprofits, but it's kind of scary as someone as an individual. So I'm just looking for guidance on resources and wisdom. Anything you have to offer, because I really my heart is good. And I really want to be crazy and do this, because I already do the Friday Flings, and that's craziness enough. But that's where I'm going with it, and it's a dream.
So we just started our market last year, so I can share with you our journey starting from scratch.
Good.
Because we last want to start from scratch.
My advice is to keep it simple and profitable.
Yeah, that's
Simple.
Simple and
Bringing the vendors in.
Yeah, no, affordable is going to be the ticket.
somebody will risk $10.
Yeah.
Tried, I'm doing it all this work, I have all this product, it's like a solid little fail. It's gonna cost me, way more money, even after doing all that work that I got out of it. Like that discourages people. And they don't want to come back.
Well, Katie, you mentioned contracts. So, for instance, somebody will buy in as a seasonal vendor, and then they lose out on money that they've invested because somebody got hurt or they couldn't make it, or and stuff like that. And then the daunting idea of you standing there with 100 and something vendors in front of you, check, and it's like, So it's just kind of, to me, it's kind of finding a happy balance. And that's okay. I would love to talk to you more about how you do things. I really appreciate that you brought your policy open and stuff.
I would say as a national trend, one of the things that's happened as we've seen farmers markets spike everywhere is that people have said, we need a farmers market in our neighborhood. Well, there's one over there, but there's not one over here. And there's one over there, but there's not one over here.
Yeah.
And then there's not enough farmers to actually coordinate over that.
Yeah.
So working really tight with possible farmers to make sure that, well, I could deliver to you on Wednesday, but I'm still going to do Colony on, and I'm still going to do, so that they have the benefit of an added outlet, but not the stress of, well, okay, I'm going to do yours, but I'm not going to do that one. Right. Because then you're just shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
I think on the same, this would be my advice would be to make sure you have community buy-in, like that they need it, that they want it, that the vendors want it. And like, we had someone try to start a market in Fairbanks near Birch Hill, and it was a private company, and he's like, we don't have it at the market over here, and he started it. And he had no farmers come because the farmers came to our market because it was busier.
I see that happen almost every year.
And so it's
a
like,
pop-up market that is mad at some regulation and policy. And they can't get anybody to, because they usually choose to do it on the same Saturday, or they want to compete. So working with the vendors to know when it will work.
and this guy did it on a different day, he did it on a Sunday, and we're on Saturday and Sunday. Well, as a farmer, I just sold everything on Saturday, and I'm not willing to go harvest again on Saturday night, so I can go to a different market on Sunday. And it's not going to happen.
Yeah, hard as a producer to want to come into a new market too.
And that's
Because they're slow.
doing outreach too and invitation. And I mean, I'm a people person. I know a lot of people in the valley, and enough vendors. I have a good vendor base in my regular business that it's like, I think I can pull this off, and give them that once in a while opportunity versus committing full time. Because they're committed full time to all these other markets.
Right.
And so that's what I really enjoy about it. And I've also been blessed. It's kind of a new area, and I got permission to use it, and I'm really excited about it, and I just want to go easy and go slow, and it's something new for us. So
as daunting as first come first serve seems, it actually works pretty well.
Yeah, and it works for us too.
It
That's the way our market.
So, you said you're collecting cash in the morning. So do you have like a list of your vendors and you just check it off as you
At the
go?
end of the day, I have.
Oh, okay.
I don't. I have a list, but at the end of the day, people come set up in the morning, and I have a bin with envelopes and assessment sheets in there, and I go at the end of the day and hand those out. But I don't have a list that I'm checking off. It's an honor system. If you don't bring me your envelope, I could probably figure out that you were there and didn't bring it to me, because the next time you're there, I don't have your envelope. But there's no police being like, hey, they didn't pay last time, or they didn't pay me last time.
And I'm not a cop.
Oh, that's
And I'm
interesting.
not, and I don't have time to be like, hey, I don't think you paid.
I just go space to space to space until it's done, but that takes time.
Well, I can't get that many people because I have to start counting that
Yeah,
money.
that's
So I'd be at
ridiculous.
the farmer's market until 10 p.m.
Yeah.
If I wait till everybody was broken down, they're required, as soon as they hear the bell, even before they break down their things, to count their cash and bring me their assessment, because I have to, with the treasurer, go through all this with 100 and something vendors. Some days it's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
Thousands and thousands and thousands?
Our biggest day ever,
That's awesome.
the market did $80,000 in sales in one day.
Whoa!
84,000.
That's why they're buying land.
Financial system do you use? QuickBooks? Do you use QuickBooks?
And I got a CAD register that connects with QuickBooks now, so I can just like upload my assessments, and all I have to do is like separate it between my vendors and like. But yeah, it's great. I mean, you should see the envelope that we take. Trying to squeeze cash in there, you know.
That you carry?
Yeah. We borrowed Kim's mattress in it.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, I think we have Mary talking about, and some others as well. Will and others will be talking about marketing.
Yeah. Is that
That'll be up here, right?
Is that the marketing jig?
I thought it was we don't have a choice.
It's everybody together.
I got a double.
Do you have a PowerPoint or anything?
I think we always have. Oh, thank you. I think we're just downstairs.
Because it's everything.
Yeah.
Check out this 4-acre.
Excited to I know I heard these stories. It's amazing.
4-acre group. The 4-acre group.
Give me their number again.
So 743-2400. I think it's awesome that I've done IT for them for 10 years and I had no idea to take my market to it.
I really like to.
So I too will be following up on it.
Where are you going to go your mobile Megan? Yeah, good. I'm at AQ.
I've tried to make it to that, but apparently I have to
Oh, really?
Yeah, I showed up and they're like, no, it's closed to a lot.
Oh, really? We went through the end of October. But maybe it was, if we had maybe it was, if we had maybe it was, if we had maybe it was, if we